Hi, everyone. Kelly here. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Hannah Ferber from Creative Spark Studio. And Hannah and I are going to be chatting about how she was able to create predictability in her marketing that grew her lesson studio by more than 3 times. So, before we go any further and get into all the good stuff, Hannah, why don't we kick it over to you? Can you just briefly describe yourself and tell us a little bit more about your studio?
For sure. So my name is Hannah, and my lesson studio is called Creative Spark Studio, as you said. And I typically like to work with preteens, teens, and adults. And we like to help voice and piano students develop their creative spark by working on, improvisation, composition, and generally like to work on creating joy through lessons. So a lot of it is about, not just about reading the music on the page, but about finding the type of music that the student likes and what kind of things they want to work on and helping them develop those skills.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it's something that's a little bit different than the traditional approach to piano and voice lessons, right? It's again more organic, more based on the student interest and finding that creativity for them, which is so exciting. I know your students really appreciate that. Jumping back a little bit, you talked about your ideal student there for a moment and how you want to work with students that are not only excited about that kind of a process, but aren't necessarily beginners or young beginners. So, when you are meeting with a potential new student for the first time, what are some of those things that you're looking for that really, for you, resonate as an ideal student to know that you're actually going to be excited about working with them?
For me, it doesn't really matter whether they're a beginner or not. The main thing that I look for in a student is that they are motivated and, interested and excited about it. So I don't take on students that are forced into piano lessons by their parents because I don't find that to be, like nobody really wins in that situation. Um,
Enough.
yeah. Um, yeah, so it doesn't really matter the level. I think I do tend to look for students that are interested in contemporary styles, because that's what I specialize in. But main thing is that they really want it and they have some kind of idea about what they're interested in. So I find it harder to work with students that are just like, I don't know, you know. So yeah, students that are excited and interested and motivated. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you've been teaching for several years and you had previously taught with the school, but when you first wanted to start teaching privately, what was the motivation behind that and how did you come to that decision?
Um, that's a good question. I sort of taught privately on and off. I've been teaching lessons since 2010. And when I first graduated from college, I took on a few private students. And then when I moved to LA, I started working with a school because it seemed like that was the easiest way. I had no clue how to find students and how, like how to set rates, how to bill, all that stuff. So, the initial reason for working with the school was they're the business. They have all that stuff figured out, and I don't. I'm just going to walk in and do my thing and walk out.
Yep.
But, over the years, I discovered lots of things that weren't a fit for me working with studios. And part of that is there's, only a certain amount you can ever make. Um, Typically never enough to pay the bills, at least in my personal experience, because of course the studio has to pay for their overhead. So that it
Right.
has to be a workable business model for them. And then the lack of choice of who I would work with.
Hmm.
That was really frustrating. There would be times where I would work with a student who didn't want to be there, would be throwing tantrums, or was too young and just, it was like, I can teach you, but there's not a whole lot that they're going to get out of this. It's better if they wait a year or two.
Right.
So, along the way, I decided to start um, working on my own. And I had a few times where like a student who had dropped out of the school contacted me, and that was kind of how it started.
Mm.
And then referrals from there is where it started. But yeah, and over the years, it's taken me a little bit of time to figure out how to also be the business part of things. So, and that's a part of what was really attractive about this program for me.
Awesome. So when we hit that point and we were trying to decide, now it's time to go to the private studio. I really want to dive into that full time. Before we started working together, what were some of those blocks that you were running into, and what were some of the other frustrations that you were experiencing?
Um, Before we started working together, I had gone through the pandemic and I had been working with a school. When I started working at the school, I had taken over a previous teacher's schedule, so I had a full
Mm.
schedule. But I was driving like an hour and a half each way to get to the school. And so it was kind of a trade-off. It was like, well, this is a predictable income. However, I have this drive. And then when the pandemic hit, uh, I had to teach those students online. And also, I ended up having to schedule those students. So it ended
Mm.
up becoming all of the benefits of having a school involved were suddenly gone. And I was still making about a third or less the amount of money that I should be making. I was dealing directly with all the students, their cancellations, rescheduling, almost everything except for the actual physical billing.
Mm.
And so when things started opening up again, I thought, okay, I'm just gonna I'll ask for a raise and I'll ask for a minimum number of hours. If I'm gonna drive an hour and a half, let's make
Yep.
it 3 hours, right? And it was just a flat out no. I was like,
Mm.
who knows? They have their reasons. They're wonderful people, but that was a really big hit for me. And it also, I think it was a blessing in disguise because it made me realize that I'm only ever going to be disposable in this business model. And I'm only ever going to make, a certain amount of money, and that will never be enough because I can only work a certain number of hours, you know.
Especially with the drive.
Especially with the drive. Yeah, I know. I spent that entire drive listening to podcasts and self-help books on how to on how to start my own studio. So, yeah, so September, I guess it was September of last year, I did like a whole studio reboot following a different program model of just like something that also we use in the outside the box model, which is the studio flat rate. So I like made a whole website. I learned how to use WordPress. I got signed up for my music staff and started billing people a monthly flat rate, and I sorted all that out on my own. I was really proud of myself, but I still was only making $1,200 a month,
Mm.
So I was like, and I had no idea how to bring in more students. I was just like waiting for them to call me, which didn't
Your
work out
website's
very
up,
well.
now what? Yeah.
Yeah, so now that's up, everyone's gonna visit it
Yeah.
and call me. Yeah,
Well, and you are in a populated area, which also means that there's a lot of competition. I mean, LA is full of voice teachers in particular. So
sure.
it's hard to break into that and get really strong SEO and be ranking on the top of Google, and to be
Yeah.
relying on that as the primary source is
Yeah.
stressful because it's not something that's predictable yet at that point in time. So obviously when we met, it was about that time when we were still making about the $1,200 a month. We were very frustrated in not having the marketing figured out yet. Was there anything else that you felt was holding you back, or was there something in particular that you're like, I know there's got to be a way to do X. I just don't know how to do it yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think actually the reason that you and I ended up getting in touch was because I posted something about um I didn't use the word consultation at the time, but it was about, having discussions with potential clients, and I sort of felt like what would happen is I would have the discussion and then I would forget like some major thing that I needed to mention, like some major policy point, or like there was one time where I forgot to tell them the prices, which somehow incredibly it worked out. They signed up anyway, but just I felt like I wanted like a script. I wanted like the equivalent of like an elevator pitch. I wanted to be able to go like, this is what I provide, this is what I'm really good at, and this is what I look for in a client. And these are my main policies, and just be able to like represent myself really confidently and like have a clear, concise way to explain to new people what, the service that I provide.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the trial lessons and consultations, this is kind of a more complicated subject for a lot of people because there's a lot of feelings around this, especially around trial lessons. That a lot of teachers feel strongly that teaching for free at any time is, it can be beneficial for the student, but for the teacher, a lot of times it's not. And so
Hmm.
building a system that's predictable makes sure that you have the time and ensures that you have all the time and the ability to cover all the material that you want to cover in the initial meeting, but also gives you the flexibility to really get to know the student and say yes or no is really important. So playing during a trial lesson versus offering a consultation and then maybe a paid trial period with the student is a very different program. So we had a long conversation with that. I definitely remember that at the very beginning, talking a lot about what a consultation can look like
Yeah.
and what that change could be for your studio. So when we met, I know it was a lot of frustration on the marketing and then the enrollment process. We had a lot of the baseline marketing structure done, which was exciting, but it was like, okay, now what do I do with it? How do I apply this? How do I find students? How do I attract students to it? And then once they're ready to come in the door, how do I actually communicate with them? Now that we're kind of on the other side of this, and to maybe give everyone a little bit of a context on the timeline, we're at about 4.5 months right now since you and I first met. So what areas of your business have improved and what has changed for you in the last 4.5 months or so?
What has improved? So many things. I mean, I think that just the repeatable process of sort of like casting out my line and bringing in potential, bringing in leads and then knowing what to do with those. Um, that has become so much easier. Like, I think initially it was really like big and scary, and I was like, oh my God, I have to learn to do so many new things. This is so uncomfortable. But now I feel like even if I met somebody in the supermarket and had to sort of like go off the cuff. I've done it so many times now that I feel really comfortable, and I sort of like have bullet points in my mind of what to talk about. So I feel a lot more confident. So that's a really huge thing for me. Obviously, the finances, like having more money makes all the difference in the world. It's like, money isn't everything, but when you're coming from $1,200 a month and you're stressing, staring up at the ceiling when you're trying to go to sleep, trying to
Mhm.
figure out how you're going to pay your bills, there's such a huge amount of stress that comes with that. And when you suddenly have enough money to pay your bills and enough money to save a little bit, and a process that you can use to get more income if you want to grow even more, it just takes such a huge weight off me.
Mhm.
It's such a big deal. Um, and there was something else, but I'm trying to remember what it was. Can you remind me what your question was again?
Yeah.
I feel like I had something else that was really good. I
You're
can't remember
totally fine. You're
now.
totally fine. I mean, we're about
Okay.
4.5 months in now. So I was just
Yeah.
asking, like, what other areas of your business have improved? So obviously the financial piece has
Yeah.
improved. Enrollment has grown. I mean, our
Right.
enrollment is about double what it was.
Right.
The studio revenue is somewhere in the area of 3 times what it was before, with more coming. I know you've got a couple leads coming in. Um, what else has improved for you in the last 4.5 months?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, it's hard. There's so many things, but I think having a lot of systems in place, like, um, just like improving efficiency overall has been a huge deal because it saves time, and then it just makes it so that I can do my job better, and it makes it so that I have, the times when I'm not teaching, I can also take on other work, and I can choose what work I want to take on.
Yeah.
So like all the, like learning how to set up your, standard responses for things, and having templates in place, and um, having copy paste responses for like issues that come up all the time, and having a way to like reschedule people easily without having to send 12 emails back and forth, all those things. I guess, yeah, just overall efficiency, confidence, and improved finances. Those are like the major ones.
That's awesome. When business is going well, and like you said before, when business is not going well, it's stressful. When business is
Yeah.
going well, it also impacts other areas of your life, right? It's not just like, woohoo, I'm making more money and my business is thriving, but that has a direct impact on your quality of life and your stress. What has improved for you outside of just the business growth personally? What are you finding? This is maybe touched in your life otherwise?
I think just it's like an affirmation
Mm.
of what I'm capable of. And that sort of
Yeah.
spreads out into other areas of your life. Because, like, before I had been, I had, I dove into the world of self-helpery and was like constantly listening to audiobooks and reading and just like trying to improve my life. And then when you set a goal and then achieve it, you go like, oh, what else can I do?
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
little addicting, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It just affirms that you can set a goal and you can achieve it. And I think especially like that runs really deep when it comes to finances because, you know, um, I grew up in a home where um, my family, I come from a family of musicians, and the message that I got all around me all the time was, please don't become a musician. Like, we know that we're musicians, but please don't become a musician because you'll be poor. And so, I always had this expectation that I was just going to be poor for the rest of my life.
Mm.
And so, realizing that there are tools that you can use, you can employ to not be poor for the rest of your life, like that's very empowering.
Well, and it's kind of crazy. I mean, when we look back at your journey over the last year, especially now since you left the school almost a year ago and really dove into private teaching more, the first few months that you're trying to build a private studio, it's not because you're not a good teacher or you're not talented. And it's not even because you didn't do the work to get a lot of the marketing and the business structure organized. You've done so much of that already. So when a musician is looking at whether it's teaching or performance or any other composition, any other type of output where we're trying to make a living in the art, it's not because you're not good enough. It's not because you're not talented enough. It's not because you didn't practice enough. It's not because you don't have the experience. Even if you don't have a degree necessarily, some of the best teachers are people that have taken other certifications and have educated themselves specifically in teaching in other ways, right? So the experience matters a lot. It does not dictate directly, though, what you're actually making in your income, right? People with
Yeah.
the big impressive degrees don't automatically make more money. It's 100,000% based on who knows you exist, right? People can't buy from you if they don't know that you're out there. So, like, here's Hannah, this amazing teacher who has so much passion for her students and wants them to like create their own music and have such a good experience. And I mean, everything you talked about at the beginning, I know is going to resonate with teachers that are listening to this right now. They want the best for their students. So here you are with all that passion and excitement and energy, and no one can buy from you because they don't know that Hannah Ferber exists and Creative Spark Studio exists. So now we've done this work, right, to market the studio and to show off how capable you are, to attract them to you. And one thing that before we hit record on this interview today, you were talking about was being selective in who you work with. And not
Mhm.
only has the studio grown at a pace that's exciting, right? But there's been a lot more opportunities that we've turned down because it wasn't the right fit. So
Mhm.
as part of that mindset of, if you're a musician, maybe you're going to be poor, you're not going to make a lot of income, or we have to say yes to all the gigs for exposure, say yes to all the opportunities just to make a buck, right?
Yeah.
What has that done for you in your mindset and your personal life, being able to be maybe a little bit more selective and choose what you want, not what you think you have to do?
It just, it improves the overall quality of my life. Because it's like if I know what you're saying. It was like I definitely in the past felt like, oh, I have to accept any student, or I have to accept any job, any vocal performing job where I have to learn, 500 songs and get paid $50, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. Like,
Yeah.
how did you have to drive 3 hours and bring your own keyboard or whatever, because you're just like, any money that comes in, I have to accept it.
Yeah,
So, you know, having the ability to pick and choose and knowing that I can still build, like there's enough people out there and I have a process in place and organization, where I know exact steps of what to do in order to get more students and get more income. It just makes me feel so much more relaxed, and it's like I enjoy my work so much more because I'm working with, students that are a good fit for the services that I provide. It's
absolutely.
just a lot less stress and a lot more just like overall satisfaction in my work and life. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And I'm so proud of you. I think one little thing we
Thank
should
you.
touch on too, you just got back from a vacation.
Yeah.
So in addition to creating stability
Yeah.
in your in predictability, your marketing process and the enrollment process, we've also created a lot of stability in your income so that you're able to take some time off and make some adjustments. Was that something you were able to do before? What does that feel like to know that you can take a couple weeks off?
Yeah, so I planned this vacation last year, like before we even met. I set out my entire year calendar in order to create this like flat rate
Yep.
program. And so, I decided like how many lessons I was going to offer in the year, and it ended up being like, well, I can take 3 weeks off for the summer. And I I don't know how I was able to just do that without knowing how much money I was going to make, because at the time I just wasn't making enough. But it was like, well, future stuff, we'll figure this out. And yeah, so this program allowed me to feel a lot more comfortable actually taking that break. Like I think before I anticipated that I was just going to take a break from teaching and try to take on other gigs at that time, because I figured that like even with my studio income I would still need more
Hmm.
money, I mean, the initial goal was like, well, there's a flat rate, so I'm still going to get paid the same amount during that vacation month as I got paid the month before. Um, but yeah, knowing that I had, increased my studio income at the time, I think it was I had doubled it. Um, and since getting back from the vacation, I've now tripled it. So it's like having that confidence to
And
go like,
vacation was like 2 weeks ago. So that's
yeah,
seriously impressive.
I know. It's amazing. Yeah, I think also having that break, like, sort of allowed the dust to settle and was like, okay, now I can, get back at this with a refreshed brain.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
but yeah, just the confidence to know the income is still going to be there. I have enough in the bank. I can take this vacation. I can relax without constantly counting my last pennies in my bank account.
Yes. It makes
Yeah.
an enormous difference. It really, really does. I remember
Yeah.
the first time I had like about a month and a half into building my studio to full time. I had like I think it was like a $4,500 month. And I was like, I am rich. Like and like I was like fresh out
Yeah.
of grad school. Like I didn't
Yeah.
really even have a grad school stipend when I was in school. Like I
Yeah.
really did not have a ton of funding. And so to come out of that and like be looking at student loans and everything, it's overwhelming to be looking at all those bills. And the first time you make that big month, you're like, man, I haven't made. Like I am awesome. This is
Yeah.
amazing. Like I'm paying all my own bills. I'm, not living on student loans anymore. And it's such a good feeling. It's also a feeling of relief knowing, like you said, that you are capable of that and you can make it happen. And to have the flexibility built in is incredible too. So incredibly proud of you and all
Aw,
of the
thank
work
you.
that you have done. It's been really outstanding to see the fast progress, especially in this past like 4 to 6 weeks. A lot has really picked up for you, and it's been absolutely outstanding to see. So, congratulations.
Thank
Also,
you.
you're building this over summer. I feel like I need to point that out to everybody. Like, it is the end of August right now. So, all of that growth that we just mentioned, that doubling and tripling of the income, adding all these students into the studio, that has happened in July and August, which for a lot of people is the hardest time to build a studio. So, who knows what September and October are going to bring for you. It's going to be awesome. But I want to
Yeah.
just point that out too. It's really a testament to how hard you're working and the effort that you've put in to build a sustainable program for yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
you're welcome. One last time, jumping all the way back to the very
Okay.
beginning when we started working together.
Okay.
What kicked you over the fence, so to speak? What was like the final deciding factor for you in starting to work with outside the box?
Um, that's a good question. I think I kind of was already, before we met, I was actually Googling. I spent a lot of time Googling financial advisors and coaches. Um, so I was kind of already looking for somebody, but I just wasn't finding, like, first of all, they were incredibly expensive. It was like, it was like I'm going to be attending college again, right? I was like, oh God.
It's like a 12 credit semester, yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot. And the other thing was I didn't know whether they were going to be able to help me with my specific situation, because not everybody is familiar with, building a lesson studio, and not everybody is familiar with how to make money within the music industry.
Right.
So I was kind of concerned that I would hire somebody and then I would be advised to like change careers or like do something that
Mm.
like didn't align with my passions.
Yeah.
So when we talked and you had all these like very specific ideas for how to grow the lesson studio, it was that I think that was the thing where, because like I spent so much time floundering, like
Mm.
having a general idea of things, like a lot of you read just like all these blogs and they're like, get connected with your community, and I'm like, how? And then how do I follow through and make that it turn into money?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the specifics, the specific plan of like, do this and this, and then this is how we get to you to this exact number. I was like, okay, I can trust that this person knows my industry and this person knows exactly how to get from A to B. Um, and then it was like, you sent me videos of other people telling about how it worked for them, and so that was really helpful as well, to
Awesome.
go like, okay, this is proven, this is working for this person and that person. So if I just, if I work hard at it and I follow the plan, then I feel confident I can get from A to B.
Awesome. Awesome. Which you have. I mean, we are at,
Yeah.
we kind of looked
Yeah,
back at our
I'm at
notes,
B.
and we're at B. Like we are at the place right now that, about four and
Yes.
a half months ago we set out to be. And I know that we've got growth beyond that planned now, and we've got a lot more coming, which is really exciting. But we are at that initial goal marker, which is really fantastic to see so many more good things heading your way. But if you were to look at yourself 4.5 months ago and you're trying to decide if this is a good fit for you. If someone's in that position now, who do you think would be a good fit for this program, and who do you recommend this program for?
Hmm. I think this program would be really good for any other um, private lesson teachers like myself who really want to grow their business. They're sure about it. They really want to grow the lesson business, and they're ready to put in some work.
Hmm.
And it's also good for people that are just struggling to know how, the specifics of how, people that might benefit from some help with putting together structure for their business so that they can have repeatable processes to make their life easier. Um, People that maybe could use some assistance for how to better shape their studio so that they don't spend every waking hour planning for 40 students, or maybe they have 40 students and they're still not making enough and they need some help with raising their rates. All those kinds of things. I think uh, all those types of people could really benefit from this program.
I appreciate that. I really do. And I know that this is something that all of those things we touched on for you, right? We've impacted a lot, but you have also been so ingrained in our outside the box community and meeting with other teachers and being involved with them and sharing your success and your stories and encouragement. And I want to just thank you for that also, and recognize that it's not just you and I, right? There's a whole team behind this, and there's a whole community behind this, and it's all of us rooting for Hannah. It's all of us rooting for everybody that's watching, and we want to make sure that everyone together in a non-competitive way can all work together to really meet our goals as a shared community. So thank you for contributing to that. Thank you for being so willing to share your journey and your story with everyone today. I really appreciate it. Let's just say someone was interested in be finding out a little bit more about you. They like your teaching philosophy. They're super excited about what you stand for. Where could they find you on the internet if they wanted to find out a little bit more information?
The best place is to go to creativesparkmusic.com. That's my lesson website.
Perfect.
Um, I so in addition to being a teacher, I also compose music for film and TV, which is part of why Another reason why I joined this program is because I wanted to be able to, again, like pick and choose the projects that I work on
Mhm.
and have some financial stability. So while the incredibly volatile world of music for film and TV is settling, I could have some stability. So you can also find me at Idle Mind on Instagram, which is my music, my original music, IDYLMIND.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your
Thank
your
you.
links, your information, all of your story today. I really appreciate that. I know this is going to help other people and really resonate with them. So thank you so much for being willing to be open today. I can't tell you how much
Absolutely.
that means to everyone that's watching.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone that tuned in for this. And if you have any other questions, obviously send them my way. I appreciate it so much, and we'll talk to you soon.